The Galaxy Council panics as humanity severs. All diplomacy. The silent departure. The Galactic Assembly Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal, its ceiling open to the stars themselves. For 8,000 years, this chamber had hosted the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. Ambassador Marcus Rivera stood at the human podium, a simple dark suit contrasting sharply with the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by representatives of older species. His weathered face showed no emotion as he surveyed the assembled delegates. Behind him, the Earth's emblem glowed softly, a blue marble against the darkness of space. The presiding chancellor, a towering Zephyron named Calthor, gestured with one of his 6 arms for silence. His species had ruled the assembly for 3 millennia, their ancient wisdom considered beyond question. Today, Chancellor Calthor wore an expression of barely concealed amusement. Ambassador Rivera, the Chancellor began, his voice resonating through translation devices. We have reviewed your petition regarding the incident at colony designation Terra 7. The Assembly has reached its decision. Marcus remained motionless, waiting. The loss of your settlement is regrettable, Calthor continued. However, the Assembly cannot intervene in every border dispute. Your species lacks the experience to properly defend frontier worlds. Perhaps in another century, when humanity has matured, you will understand the complexities of galactic affairs. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Keltharian representative, a floating mass of luminescent tentacles, pulsed with what translated as condescending sympathy. The Vraxian delegate, encased in his environmental suit, emitted a series of clicks that the translator rendered as mild mockery. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. Terra 7 was not a border dispute. It was a massacre. 15,000 civilians dead. Our evidence clearly showed the attack originated from the Korthax Enclave, which operates under Assembly protection. The Chancellor waved a dismissive appendage. The Korthax are a sovereign entity. We cannot police every action of every member civilization. Such incidents are the cost of expansion, Ambassador. All young species experience these growing pains. Growing pains, Marcus repeated softly. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a slim data tablet. Chancellor, members of the Assembly, humanity came to this body 73 years ago with hope. We believed in the promise of cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual protection. He activated the tablet, projecting images above the chamber. Scenes appeared of burning habitats, scattered debris, and recovery teams pulling bodies from wreckage. In 73 years, we have submitted 147 petitions for assistance, trade agreements, and technology exchanges. Of those, 147 were denied or indefinitely postponed. We were told we needed more experience, more patience, more understanding of how things work. The images shifted to show humans working, building, struggling against the void. Meanwhile, when the Zephyrin trade convoy was threatened last year, the Assembly mobilized 4 battle fleets within hours. When Keltharian mining rights were disputed, the Assembly mediated within days. When Vraxian colonies requested expansion permits, they were approved immediately. More murmurs now, some uncomfortable. We learned our lesson, Marcus continued. The Assembly does not want young species as equals. It wants students who know their place. It wants civilizations that will wait centuries for scraps and call it generosity. This is outrageous, a delegate shouted. We have maintained galactic peace for millennia. You have maintained your comfort, Marcus corrected. You have preserved a system where ancient species hold all power, and newer civilizations serve at your pleasure. You call it wisdom. We call it what it is. He straightened, his voice growing stronger. Therefore, effective immediately, the United Nations of Sol withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. All human embassies will close. All diplomatic channels will terminate. All treaties and agreements are void. Humanity will chart its own course. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Chancellor Calthor's skin flushed deep purple with anger. You cannot survive without the Assembly, Calthor roared. Our trade networks sustain you. Our knowledge guides you. Our protection shields you. You will collapse within months. Marcus smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Chancellor, humanity survived ice ages with stone tools. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars that nearly destroyed our world. We rebuilt from ashes more times than your species has held elections. Being dismissed by comfortable bureaucrats who fear change? That does not even register as a challenge. He began gathering his materials. You will regret this, the Vraxian delegate hissed. The galaxy is dangerous for those without protection. Then we will learn to be more dangerous, Marcus replied. We have been doing that for a very long time. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. One final thought, he said. You kept calling us young, inexperienced, immature. You know what young species have that old ones forget? Hunger, adaptability, the willingness to take risks because we have not learned to fear failure. You have been comfortable for so long you have forgotten how to truly strive. His eyes swept across the assembled delegates. The assembly will continue as it always has, comfortable, stagnant, congratulating itself on ancient glories, and one day, you will look around and realize the galaxy has moved on without you. That day is coming sooner than you think. Ambassador Marcus Rivera left the Galactic Assembly Hall. Behind him, chaos continued to reign. Some delegates laughed at human foolishness. Others argued about proper responses. A few, the wisest among them, felt the first stirrings of concern. In the observation chambers, an elderly Mycerian scholar watched the proceedings with interest. Her species was older than most in the assembly, but they had never joined. They preferred to watch and learn. She made a note in her records. The humans have chosen their path with clear eyes and firm resolve. The assembly believes them desperate. I have studied humanity's history. They are not desperate. They are decided. There is a difference, and it is significant. As human ships began departing from assembly stations across the galaxy, the established order remained confident. Humanity would return, they assured themselves. They had no choice. They were wrong. The awakening 6 months had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Assembly. According to every projection made by Assembly analysts, human civilization should have been on the verge of economic collapse. Their colonies should have been starving. Their ships should have been stranded without access to established trade routes. Instead, something entirely different was happening, and it terrified those who were paying attention. High Administrator Velcara of the Assembly Intelligence Division stared at the data streaming across her workstation. Her Keltharian physiology allowed her to process multiple information streams simultaneously, but what she was seeing made no sense through any analytical framework. This cannot be accurate. She pulsed to her assistant, a young Zephyron named Torval. Verify these figures again. Torval's skin rippled with nervous patterns. Administrator, we have verified them 7 times. Human trade volume has increased by 42% since the sanctions were implemented. Their colonial expansion rate has tripled. Their industrial output is exceeding our most optimistic projections for them by a factor of 5. Velcara's luminescence dimmed with confusion. How is this possible? We control the primary trade routes. We control access to advanced technologies. We control the economic networks that have sustained galactic commerce for millennia. The display shifted, showing new navigation charts. Green lines crisscrossed the galaxy in patterns the Assembly had never considered. They built new routes, Torval explained. They are trading with civilizations we classified as too insignificant to bother with. The Frontier Collective, the Wanderer clans, the Scattered Worlds. Hundreds of independent systems that never joined the Assembly because we never invited them. Velcara processed this information. These are primitive civilizations. What could they possibly offer humanity? Resources, markets, and most importantly, respect. The humans are not demanding tribute or subservience. They are offering fair trades and mutual defense agreements. The minor civilizations are responding enthusiastically. She pulled up military intelligence reports and her alarm intensified. These ship numbers must be wrong. Our last assessment estimated the human fleet at approximately 300 vessels. This data suggests over 2,000 combat-ready ships. Torval's skin flushed darker. Administrator, we believe our previous intelligence was deliberately compromised. The humans appear to have been concealing their true capabilities for decades. Every time we dismissed their technological proposals, they were actually buying time to develop those technologies in secret. Before Velcara could respond, an emergency alert flashed across every screen in the intelligence division. The Dorvian Dominion, a militaristic assembly member known for aggressive expansion, had launched an invasion of human space. The Dorvians had been waiting for exactly this moment. When humanity left the assembly, the Dominion saw opportunity. Human colonies sat on resource-rich systems. Their isolation seemed to make them vulnerable. War Marshal Crexton had assembled 250 warships, the largest Dorvian battle fleet in a generation. It should have been a massacre. With the Dorvians as victors, Velkara watched in real time as the disaster unfolded. The Dorvian fleet entered the Kepler sector, where humanity maintained 7 colonies. They expected minimal resistance. Instead, they found a nightmare. The humans had not built a traditional defensive fleet. They had built something far more terrifying. Automated defense platforms, thousands of them, filled the space around every human world. These were not simple weapon satellites. They were hunter-killers using technology the Assembly had never seen. The Dorvian fleet advanced confidently. Then the platforms activated. Electromagnetic pulse weapons disabled Dorvian shields in seconds. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speeds, punched through hulls designed to withstand plasma cannons. Swarms of automated drones, too small and numerous to target effectively, disabled engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. Within 20 minutes, 70 Dorvian ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest attempted to retreat. Human warships emerged from stealth fields the Dorvians had not known existed. These vessels moved with impossible coordination, sharing tactical data through quantum-entangled communication networks. Their weapons combined energy and kinetic systems in ways that bypassed every known defensive measure. War Marshal Crexton broadcast a desperate plea for assistance as his flagship's shields collapsed under relentless assault. The transmission was intercepted not just by Dorvian forces, but by every major civilization monitoring the sector. They were ready for us. Crexton's voice crackled through damaged systems. Everything we knew about human capabilities was wrong. They have been hiding their strength for years. They let us underestimate them. They wanted us to attack. The transmission ended as the flagship's reactor went critical. Of the 250 Dorvian warships that entered human space, 17 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured, their crews taken as prisoners of war. Then came the message that changed everything. Every communication network in the galaxy received the same broadcast. It showed a human military commander, a woman named Admiral Catherine Zhao, standing on the bridge of a massive warship. Behind her, through the viewscreen, Dorvian wreckage drifted in the void. 6 months ago, Admiral Zhao began, her voice cold and precise, humanity withdrew from the Galactic Assembly. We were told we could not survive without their protection, their trade networks, their wisdom. Today, the Dorvian Dominion learned the truth. The view shifted to show battle footage. Dorvian ships exploding, human defensive systems operating with machine efficiency, the systematic destruction of an invasion force. We did not ask for this fight, Zhao continued. We did not provoke it. But when threatened, humanity responds with overwhelming force. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. We gave the galaxy a simple message: leave us alone. The Dorvians chose not to listen. Her expression hardened. Every civilization watching this broadcast should understand something fundamental about humanity. We do not bluff. We do not posture. When we say we will defend ourselves, we mean it with every resource at our disposal. The Assembly thought we were weak because we were patient. They mistook our restraint for inability. She leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. To the Galactic Assembly, your sanctions failed. Your expectations were wrong. Your understanding of humanity was fatally flawed. We do not need you. We never did. You had 73 years to treat us as equals. You chose condescension. Now you will learn to treat us with respect, not because we ask for it, but because the alternative is unacceptable. The broadcast included detailed technical specifications of the battle. Every civilization with military analysts immediately began reassessing their understanding of human capabilities. What they found shocked them. Human technology had not just caught up to the galactic standard. In several key areas, it had surpassed it. Their artificial intelligence systems were more sophisticated. Their materials science was more advanced. Their tactical doctrines were revolutionary. The Assembly had been so confident in their superiority, they had stopped paying attention to what humanity was actually doing. In the assembly hall, an emergency session convened. Chancellor Calthor's usual confidence had evaporated. "This is a disaster," he said, his 6 arms gesturing frantically. The Dorvians were assembly members. "Their defeat makes us all look weak." "We are weak," Administrator Velkara said bluntly. "At least compared to what humanity has become. Every assumption we made about them was wrong." The Vraxian delegate hissed in frustration. "We must respond. Sanctions have failed. Economic pressure is meaningless. We need military action against what?" Velkara demanded. "Against a civilization that just destroyed a fleet of 250 ships while losing only 3 of their own? Against a species that has been preparing for exactly this scenario for decades? You saw the battle footage. Human defensive networks are impenetrable. Their offensive capabilities are devastating, and we have no idea how many ships they actually possess." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "Then what do you suggest?" Calthor asked quietly. Velkara's luminescence pulsed with a pattern that translated as resignation. "I suggest we face reality. Humanity is no longer a young species begging for approval. They are now a major power, and they achieved that status while we were busy being comfortable and dismissive. We have 3 choices. We can fight them and lose. We can continue ignoring them and become irrelevant, or we can finally treat them as equals. But our pride," a delegate began. "Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford," Velkara interrupted. "The galaxy is changing, and we are on the wrong side of that change." Outside the assembly hall, across thousands of worlds, younger civilizations watched the human broadcast with growing interest. If humanity could stand against the assembly and win, what did that mean for everyone else who had been waiting patiently for recognition? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. The new order. The announcement came 3 weeks after the Dorvian defeat. Ambassador Marcus Rivera, speaking from a neutral station in unclaimed space, addressed the galaxy once more. "Humanity extends an invitation," he began, "to any civilization that believes in cooperation between equals, fair trade without exploitation, and mutual defense without domination. We are forming the Independent Systems Coalition. Membership is open to all who share our principles, regardless of how old your civilization is or how many worlds you control." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 48 hours, 17 civilizations formally applied for membership. Within a week, 34. Within a month, the coalition encompassed over 60 species, controlling more than 400 star systems. These were not the ancient powers of the galaxy. They were the civilizations the Assembly had always dismissed as too young, too small, too insignificant. Now they were finding their voice, and it was growing louder every day. The Wanderer clans, a nomadic people whose request for Assembly membership had been denied 4 times, joined immediately. The Frontier Collective, comprising dozens of independent colonies, signed the coalition charter enthusiastically. The scattered worlds, isolated systems that had been ignored for centuries, found in the coalition something they had never known: respect. High Administrator Velkara watched the exodus with growing alarm. She had predicted this, but the scale exceeded even her warnings. Chancellor Calthor summoned her to a private meeting in his chambers. The Zephyrin leader looked older now, his skin carrying patterns of stress and fatigue. "How many will we lose?" he asked without preamble. Velkara's luminescence dimmed. "Conservative estimate? 20% of current Assembly members will defect to the coalition within the year. Optimistic estimate? We might retain 60% of our current membership, but with significantly reduced influence. And economically, the coalition is already negotiating exclusive trade agreements. They are bypassing our established routes entirely. Within 2 years, they will rival our economic output. Within 5, they may surpass it." Calthor was silent for a long moment. "How did this happen? How did we fail to see this coming?" Velkara pulsed with a pattern that translated as bitter understanding. "We stopped listening, Chancellor. We became so certain of our wisdom, so confident in our superiority that we failed to notice the galaxy changing around us. Humanity showed us our weakness, but they did not create it. We created it ourselves through arrogance and complacency." The Chancellor's 6 arms fell limply to his sides. "What do we do now? We do what we should have done 73 years ago. We negotiate as equals." The meeting between Assembly leadership and the coalition took place on a neutral world, a beautiful planet with purple skies and emerald oceans that neither side controlled. The location was deliberately chosen to symbolize new beginnings. Ambassador Marcus Rivera led the coalition delegation, accompanied by representatives from a dozen member species. Chancellor Calthor led the assembly delegation, his usual entourage conspicuously absent. The negotiations lasted 6 days. There were no grand speeches, no theatrical pronouncements. Instead, there was honest dialogue about mistakes made, opportunities lost, and paths forward. On the final day, Chancellor Calthor addressed Marcus directly. "We were wrong," the Zephyron leader said, his voice heavy with the weight of admission. "We treated your people and many others with dismissive arrogance. We mistook age for wisdom and power for righteousness. The galaxy has changed and we failed to change with it." Marcus nodded slowly. "Recognizing a mistake is the beginning of correcting it." "What do you want from us?" Calthor asked. "Surrender? Submission? Revenge?" Marcus smiled. "None of those. We want what we have always wanted, to be treated as equals. The Coalition is not seeking to destroy the Assembly. We are seeking to create a galaxy where every civilization, regardless of age or size, has a voice." He leaned forward. "The Assembly can continue to exist. In fact, the galaxy needs institutions with your experience and resources. But it cannot continue to exist as a hierarchy where ancient species make all decisions and younger ones simply obey. The future belongs to cooperation, not domination." The final agreement reshaped galactic politics. The Assembly would continue, but with fundamental reforms. Coalition members would have full voting rights on all matters. Economic regulations would be restructured to prevent exploitation. Military interventions would require majority consent from all affected parties. Most importantly, the agreement established the principle that guided all future interactions. No civilization would be considered inherently superior to another based solely on age or past achievements. 3 months after the agreement, Marcus stood once again in the Galactic Assembly Hall. But now, he stood not as a petitioner but as an equal. Around him, representatives from coalition species filled seats that had once been empty or occupied by minor functionaries. Chancellor Calthor opened the session with an acknowledgement that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. "The Assembly recognizes that we enter a new era, an era where wisdom comes not from age alone, but from the willingness to learn, adapt, and grow. Humanity taught us this lesson. We were poor students, but we are learning." The agenda for the session included proposals from species that had never been heard before. New trade routes were discussed. Technology sharing agreements were negotiated. Mutual defense pacts were established on terms that protected small civilizations as much as large ones. That evening, Marcus stood at an observation window, watching stars wheel overhead. Admiral Catherine Zhao joined him, 2 veterans who had fought different battles toward the same goal. "Do you think it will last?" Zhao asked. "The reforms, the cooperation, all of it?" Marcus considered the question. "Nothing lasts forever. There will be challenges, setbacks, moments when old habits return, but we have changed the fundamental equation. The galaxy now knows that young civilizations can be strong, that cooperation beats domination, and that respect cannot be demanded but must be earned." He turned from the window. "We did not set out to destroy the old order. We set out to show there was a better way. Whether that better way succeeds depends on everyone, not just us. But at least now the possibility exists." Zhao smiled. "From outcasts to architects of a new galactic order in less than a year. Not bad for a young species." "We had good teachers," Marcus replied. "They taught us everything we needed to know about what not to do." Across the galaxy, the changes rippled outward. Civilizations that had been silent for centuries found their voices. Technologies that had been hoarded were shared. Resources that had been controlled by a few were distributed more fairly. The transition was not smooth. There were conflicts, disagreements, and moments of crisis. But the fundamental principle held: cooperation between equals produced better outcomes than hierarchy enforced by tradition. In the Great Observation Archives, the Mycerian scholar who had watched humanity's departure made her final note on the matter. The humans did not seek to conquer the galaxy. They sought to free it from the weight of its own history. In doing so, they reminded all civilizations of a truth we had forgotten. Strength comes not from standing above others, but from standing together. The Assembly learned this lesson at great cost. The galaxy is better for that lesson. however painful its teaching. Ambassador Marcus Rivera eventually retired to Earth, his mission complete. But the legacy of humanity's bold stand continued to shape galactic civilization for generations. The era of unchallenged ancient supremacy had ended. The era of cooperative partnership had begun, and it had all started with one simple act: the courage to walk away from a system that demanded submission, and the strength to build something better. The galaxy trembled not because humanity ended talks, but because in ending them, humanity showed every other civilization that a better future was possible. Sometimes the bravest thing to do is not to fight the old order, but to simply refuse to participate in it and build something new. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be. The price of peace, the Coalition Council chambers on New Harmony Station, represented everything the old Galactic Assembly was not. The circular chamber placed all representatives at equal height, with no elevated positions for elder species. The walls displayed real-time data from all member worlds, transparent and accessible to everyone. Most importantly, every species, regardless of how recently they had achieved spaceflight, had an equal vote. Ambassador Marcus Rivera, now serving as the Coalition's first speaker, called the emergency session to order. His hair had grayed considerably in the 18 months since the Coalition's founding, but his eyes remained sharp and determined. "We have a situation that threatens everything we have built," he began without preamble. "The Keltharian sovereignty has formally withdrawn from the reformed Galactic Assembly and is mobilizing its fleets along our borders." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. The Keltharians were one of the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Their military capabilities were legendary, and unlike the Dorvians, they learned from others' mistakes. Representative Thalrin of the Wanderer clan spoke first, her crystalline voice chiming through the translation system. Why would they risk open conflict? The reforms were working. Even the Assembly's most conservative members were adapting. Marcus activated a holographic display showing intercepted communications, because they see the Coalition not as an alternative, but as a threat. High Commander Zixal believes we are dismantling galactic order itself. He has convinced a faction within the Keltharian government that our success will inspire revolutions across their own territories. Admiral Catherine Zhao, now commanding the Coalition Defense Force, stepped forward. Her uniform bore the insignia of a dozen member species, symbolizing the unified command structure they had built. "Intelligence suggests the Keltharians have assembled over 800 warships," she reported. "They are not coming to negotiate or make a statement. They are coming to crush us completely, to show the galaxy that challenging ancient power structures has consequences." The Young Frontier Collective representative, a being named Kesiva, whose species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, stood with visible fear. "Can we survive such an assault? The Keltharians have been waging war since before my ancestors discovered fire." "We can," Zhao said firmly, "but not without cost. The Keltharians learned from the Dorvian failure. They will not underestimate our defenses. They will not walk into our traps. This will be a real war, not a demonstration." Marcus looked around the chamber at the faces, appendages, and energy forms of 53 different species. Some had been spacefaring for only decades, others for centuries but still young by galactic standards. All of them had joined the Coalition seeking freedom from the Assembly's rigid hierarchies. "We have a choice," he said quietly. "We can negotiate a surrender, dissolve the Coalition, and return to the old system. The Keltharians would accept that and we would avoid war, or we can stand together and defend what we have built, knowing the cost will be measured in lives and worlds." The chamber fell silent. It was Representative Morvan of the Scattered Worlds who finally spoke. His species had been ignored by the Assembly for 800 years, deemed too primitive to matter. "My people have a saying," Morvan said, his voice translated from a series of musical tones. "Better to die on your feet than live forever on your knees." The Coalition gave us something we never had before: dignity. I will not surrender that for safety. One by one, every representative voiced their agreement. The Coalition would stand. The Keltharian fleet entered Coalition space 3 weeks later. High Commander Zixal led from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, a vessel so massive it had its own gravitational field. Around it, 800 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy moved in perfect formation. Zixal was not like the rash Dorvian war marshal. He was methodical, calculating, and had spent months studying every detail of the human defensive victory. He knew about the automated platforms, the drone swarms, the quantum communication networks. He had prepared countermeasures for everything. The first battle occurred at the Threshold system, a coalition stronghold protecting 3 populated worlds. Admiral Zhao had positioned her fleet carefully, 400 coalition warships supported by extensive defensive networks. The Keltharian approach was devastating in its efficiency. They deployed electromagnetic shields that protected them from the kinetic platforms. They released counter-drones that hunted and destroyed coalition automated systems. They used quantum jammers that disrupted the coordination networks that had made human forces so effective against the Dorvians. The Battle of Threshold lasted 16 hours. When it ended, the coalition had lost 97 ships and 2 of the defensive platforms. The Keltharians had lost 30 ships, but they held the system. Over the next month, 4 more systems fell. The Keltharian advance was slow but inexorable. They were winning. Marcus watched the casualty reports with growing anguish. Each number represented lives, families, futures destroyed. The coalition was bleeding, and conventional military strategy suggested they would lose this war. "We need to try something different," he said during a strategy session with Zhao and the coalition military leadership. "The Keltharians are fighting the war they expected. We need to fight a different war." Admiral Zhao studied the star maps. "What do you have in mind?" Marcus pointed to the Keltharian supply lines, stretching back across 6 star systems to their home territories. "They are fighting like the Galactic Assembly always fought. Overwhelming force, superior technology, traditional tactics. But the coalition represents something else: flexibility, innovation, asymmetric thinking." He looked at the assembled officers, many from species the old assembly had never taken seriously. "We cannot match them ship for ship, so we stop trying. We fight like humanity fought for thousands of years when facing superior forces. We make them pay for every system, every world, every mile of space. We turn their advance into a nightmare, where victory costs more than they are willing to pay." The strategy that emerged was brutal but effective. Coalition forces would not meet the Keltharians in direct fleet engagements. Instead, they would use hit-and-run tactics targeting supply convoys and isolated units. They would make extensive use of stealth technology, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the Keltharians could respond. Most controversially, they would evacuate civilian populations from threatened systems and then turn those systems into traps, filling them with automated weapons, false sensor readings, and delayed action surprises that would activate days or weeks after the Keltharians took control. It was Representative Keseva who voiced the concern many felt. "This strategy means abandoning our worlds, letting the enemy take them. How do we explain that to our people?" Marcus met the young representative's eyes. "We explain that worlds can be retaken, lives cannot be restored. We are not abandoning anything permanently. We are making a tactical retreat to preserve our forces for a longer campaign." The shift in tactics began at the Meridian system. When the Keltharians arrived expecting resistance, they found the system evacuated. No fleet opposed them. No platforms fired. They took control without firing a shot. High Commander Zixal was immediately suspicious. "Send reconnaissance teams to every installation," he ordered. "Scan for traps, hidden weapons, anything unusual." His teams found nothing. The humans and their allies had simply abandoned the system. Zixal fortified his position and prepared to advance further. 3 days later, ships throughout his fleet began experiencing critical system failures. The Meridian system's automated mining drones, left running but reprogrammed, had been distributing microscopic robots that infiltrated Keltharian ships through standard air recycling systems. These nanobots did not attack immediately. They waited, spreading, multiplying, and then simultaneously disrupting key systems across the fleet. 30 ships were crippled before Keltharian engineers identified and neutralized the threat. Zixal was forced to spend 2 weeks conducting complete system purges on every vessel in his fleet. During those 2 weeks, coalition strike teams hit 3 Keltharian supply convoys, destroying enough provisions to feed the fleet for months. They also conducted raids on 2 lightly defended systems behind the Keltharian front lines, forcing Zixal to divert forces to protect his rear. The pattern repeated across multiple systems. The Keltharians would advance, The coalition would retreat, and then the occupied systems would become ongoing problems. Automated defenses would activate days later. Supply lines would be raided constantly. False intelligence would lead Keltharian forces into ambushes. High Commander Zixel found himself in an impossible situation. He was winning territory but losing the war. Every system he conquered required ships to garrison it. Every supply convoy needed escorts. His fleet, once 800 strong, was now spread across dozens of systems, never able to concentrate its full force. Meanwhile, coalition forces grew stronger. New ships were being built at hidden shipyards in deep space. Reinforcements arrived from newly recruited member species. Most importantly, the coalition's unified purpose strengthened while Keltharian morale began to crack. 6 months into the war, Zixal received a communication from his government. The message was clear. The war was costing too much for too little gain. Public support was collapsing. The Keltharian economy was straining under the military expenditure. Find a way to end this, or we will replace you with someone who can. The final confrontation came not on a battlefield, but in a negotiation chamber on a neutral station. High Commander Zixal sat across from Ambassador Marcus Rivera. Both men looked exhausted. "You have fought well," Zixal admitted. "We underestimated not your strength, but your determination. You were willing to sacrifice everything for your principles." Marcus shook his head. "We were willing to sacrifice everything to avoid living under someone else's principles. There is a difference. What do you want?" Zixal asked bluntly. "Terms for our surrender?" "We do not want your surrender," Marcus replied. "We want peace. We want recognition that the coalition has a right to exist. We want the Keltharian sovereignty to join the other assembly members in accepting the new galactic order." He leaned forward. "Commander, this war benefits no one. Your people are suffering. Ours are suffering. And for what? To prove that old species should dominate young ones? That lesson has already been disproven. The galaxy has changed." Zixal was silent for a long moment. "My government will demand reparations, territorial concessions. Then your government misunderstands the situation." Marcus's voice hardened. "We are not surrendering. We are offering peace between equals. If the Keltharians want to continue this war, we will continue to fight it. And every month it continues, more species will join the coalition, and fewer will support the Keltharian position." The commander studied Marcus's face, seeing the absolute determination there. Finally he sighed, a sound that translated across species as resignation. "What are your terms?" Marcus outlined a simple framework: immediate ceasefire, mutual withdrawal to pre-war borders, exchange of prisoners, and formal Keltharian recognition of the coalition as a legitimate political entity. No reparations on either side, no territorial changes, simply an acknowledgement that the war had been a mistake, and both sides wished to move forward. 3 weeks later, the Treaty of New Harmony was signed. The war that was supposed to crush the coalition instead legitimized it. The Keltharian sovereignty, one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, had fought the coalition to a stalemate and then chosen peace over continued conflict. In the coalition council chambers, Marcus addressed the representatives one final time before stepping down as first speaker. His mission was complete. "We won this war," he said, "not because we were stronger, but because we understood something our opponents did not. Unity born from mutual respect is stronger than hierarchy enforced by tradition." Every species in this chamber, from those who have traveled the stars for centuries to those who achieved it only years ago, contributed to this victory. He paused, looking at each representative. "But let us not celebrate too loudly. We paid for this peace in blood and treasure. Thousands died defending principles that the powerful wanted to deny. Let us honor them by building a galaxy where such wars become impossible, where every species can pursue its destiny without fear of domination." The coalition would face other challenges in the years to come, but the Keltharian War proved that the new order could survive not just economically and politically, but militarily as well. The age of unquestioned ancient supremacy had truly ended. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The young could stand against the old, the small against the large, and together they could forge a future that belonged to all. Comment for next part.